Welcome to the deep dive. Look, you're here because you want to get a handle on artificial intelligence, right? Without, getting totally lost in all the buzzwords and hype.
Exactly, and that's what we're aiming for today.
We're going to cut through it. We've basically pulled together the key stuff developments, what's coming next, designed for someone like you who just wants the essentials fast.
Yep. Think of this as your quick guide, your shortcut through the AI maze. We've looked at a bunch of sources to sort of boil down what's important now and what's just around the corner, especially things like AI agents and how they're being used, say, in finance.
Okay, good. So let's maybe start with a quick history lesson. Like, where did all this AI stuff even come from? It wasn't just poof overnight.
Not at all. It started much more academically. Back in the day, it was really a research field. And interestingly, the early programming languages they used, things like Lisp and Prolog.
Names I haven't heard in a while.
Right. Maybe not household names now, but they were super important for building that logical foundation. That groundwork eventually led to things like expert systems.
Expert systems, okay. I remember those being talked about more in the, 80s and 90s.
Exactly. That was kind of the first wave of AI that got more popular. The whole idea was trying to capture human expert knowledge, in a specific area and put it into a computer.
So it was all about programming the rules, explicitly telling the machine what to know.
Pretty much. Symbolic reasoning, they called it, representing knowledge so the computer could work with it. That was the key focus for early AI.
Okay, but then things shifted. Machine learning, ML, came along.
Big shift.
Yeah.
ML was fundamentally different. Instead of feeding it rules.
You feed it data.
Exactly. You let the system learn the patterns from the data itself. This really started taking off, say, in the 2010s.
It's like teaching a kid shapes. You don't list rules, you just show them examples, right? And they figure it out.
Perfect analogy. ML finds those underlying structures, makes predictions based on what it's seen. It learns.
And that makes it way more flexible.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Because it's not limited by the rules you wrote. It can spot things you didn't explicitly code for. Think cybersecurity.
Spotting anomalies. Things that don't fit the usual pattern.
Precisely. It learns what normal looks like, then flags anything that deviates. Super useful.
Okay, so ML learns from data. Then came deep learning, DL.
Right. Deep learning is basically a type of machine learning, but it uses these artificial neural networks, lots of layers stacked on top of each other.
Kind of mimicking the brain in a very simplified way.
Sort of, yeah. That's the idea. And DL also really hit its stride in the 2010s. It's the foundation for a lot of the really advanced AI we see today.
But it's more complex. I've heard it called a black box sometimes.
It can be. Because those networks have so many layers and connections, figuring out exactly why it made a certain decision isn't always easy.
So there's a trade-off. More power, maybe less understanding of how it works.
That's a good way to put it. Performance versus interpretability. It's something researchers are actively working on, trying to make these powerful models easier to understand. Each layer learns different features, gets more complex as you go deeper.
Which brings us, I guess, to the really current stuff, generative AI.
The one everyone's talking about, built on these things called foundation models.
And the key thing here is creation. It makes new stuff.
Yeah, exactly. New content, text, images, audio, you name it. Now, some folks say, oh, it's just rehashing things it's already seen.
I've heard that argument, like it's just copying and pasting bits together.
But think about music, right? All the notes exist already. Composers use those existing notes to create totally new symphonies.
Okay, that's a good point. So it learns the patterns, the rules, the style.
And then uses that understanding to generate something novel, like large language models, LLMs.
Right, the text-based ones.
They're not just predicting the next word anymore. They can write whole articles, summarize huge documents, have pretty natural conversations. It's a massive leap.
Yeah, the capabilities seem to have exploded recently.
Absolutely. And with these foundation models and generative AI, the speed of adoption has just gone through the roof. It feels like we went from slow and steady to warp speed.
It really does. Okay, so speaking of speed and current buzz, Agentic AI, that seems to be popping up everywhere. We've definitely seen interest spike when that topic comes up.
For sure. It's clearly something people are very curious about right now.
So let's break it down. What is an AI agent exactly?
Okay, so think beyond just responding to one command. An AI agent is more autonomous. It can reason, it can plan, and importantly, it can take actions to achieve a goal.
Actions, like interacting with things.
Yeah, it can break down a complex problem into smaller steps, and then use different tools or access databases to actually get things done.
Okay, that sounds incredibly useful, Potentially game-changing.
The potential's definitely there. If they work well, they can be super helpful.
But what are the roadblocks right now? What's holding them back?
Well, a big challenge is consistent logical reasoning. Today's models can sometimes, stumble when things get really complex, with lots of moving parts or variables.
So they might start a plan okay, but get lost if it gets too tricky.
Something like that.
Okay.
Making them reason reliably, especially in complicated situations, that's a major focus for improvement.
So how are people trying to fix that, make them better reasoners?
One big trend is moving away from trying to build one single giant AI model that does everything what you might call a monolithic model.
Okay.
And moving towards compound AI systems. Think of it like building with AI Lego bricks.
Compound AI systems, meaning you connect different pieces together.
Exactly. It's more modular. You integrate different AI models, maybe some specialized tools with your existing databases and processes.
Can you give an example? Make it a bit more concrete.
Sure. Let's say you want to plan a work trip. A standard chatbot might suggest places, maybe.
Right.
But it probably doesn't know your company's specific travel policy, or how much vacation time you have left, or how to book flights directly.
Okay, yeah, it lacks context and access.
But a compound system could link that language model to, say, your HR database for vacation days, the company policy documents, and maybe even a travel booking system.
Ah, I see. So you ask it to plan the trip.
And the system figures out, okay, I need to check the policy first, then query the HR database for days off, then search for flights and hotels that fit the budget and dates.
And then it gives you the answer, having used all those different tools.
Precisely. It orchestrates the whole process.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like building a specialized team instead of relying on one genius who might not know everything.
That's a great way to think about it. And it's flexible. You can swap components in and out, combine different types of models, language, vision, whatever, with specific tools.
Yeah.
It's often more adaptable than trying to get one massive model to do it all.
Okay. Now you hear the term RAG thrown around a lot too. Retrieval-Augmented Generation. How does that fit in?
RAG is a really common and pretty effective type of compound system. Basically, the standard ARD process works like this. You ask the AI a question. Before the AI answers, the system first retrieves relevant information from some external knowledge source. Could be internal company docs, could be the web, whatever.
Okay, so it grabs some background info first.
Right. Then it takes that retrieved info, adds it to your original question as extra context, and then sends the whole package to the language model to generate the answer.
So the answer is grounded in specific relevant data it just looked up.
Exactly. Makes the answers much more accurate and up to date, usually.
Makes sense. So then what's agentic RAG? Is that just RAG with an agent?
Pretty much. It takes RAG a step further. The language model itself acts more like an agent in the process.
How so?
Instead of just generating the answer based on whatever info is retrieved, the agent makes decisions about the retrieval itself. Like, imagine you have several different places it could look for information.
Different databases or knowledge bases?
Right. Maybe one has internal company policies, another has general industry knowledge. Stored in something like a vector database, which is good at finding related concepts and not just keywords.
Okay.
An agentic RG system could look at your question and decide, this question is about internal policy. I should query that database. Or, this is a general question. I'll check the industry knowledge base.
So it's choosing the right tool for the job, essentially, based on the question.
Exactly. It's making an intelligent routing decision. Like if you ask about the company's remote work policy, it knows to check the internal docs.
Gotcha.
But if you ask what are typical remote work communication strategies, it might go to the general knowledge base. It could even decide to query both or recognize a question is totally irrelevant and send it somewhere else, like a failsafe.
That feels much smarter, much more, agentic.
It is. It's moving towards more dynamic decision-making within the AI system itself.
And where are we seeing this being used? Or where could it be used?
Customer support is a big one. Imagine an AI that can intelligently pull from product manuals, past support tickets, customer history, all to give a really tailored answer.
Yeah, that would be better than just generic FAQs.
For sure. Legal tech is another area. Lawyers using it to search through internal case files and public legal databases simultaneously, finding the most relevant precedents. It just makes the whole system more responsive, accurate, and adaptable, especially if it can tap into real-time data or other services.
Okay, this is painting a really interesting picture of AI becoming more capable, more integrated. Let's look ahead then. What are the big AI trends we should expect for, say, 2025?
Well, Based on what we're seeing, agentic AI, as we just discussed, is definitely going to continue to be a major focus. Expect those reasoning capabilities to keep improving.
Right. Better planning, better execution. What else?
Another interesting one is something called inference time compute.
Inference time compute. Say more about that.
Okay, so inference is when the AI is actually doing its work,
Right.
answering your question, making a prediction.
Okay.
With inference time compute, the idea is that newer models might spend a variable amount of time thinking before they answer.
So a complex question gets more processing time.
Exactly. It dynamically allocates compute resources based on the difficulty of the query. And what's cool is that this inference reasoning part can often be improved separately from retraining the whole base model.
So you have two ways to make the AI smarter: better training data and better thinking time during inference.
You got it. It adds another lever to pull for improving performance. Could be more thoughtful answers, maybe with a tiny bit more delay for tough questions.
Interesting. What other trends are on the horizon for 2025?
We'll probably keep seeing the push towards very large models,
Mm.
absolutely massive parameter count.
Billions of parameters, right?
Yeah, current cutting-edge models are maybe 1 or 2 trillion parameters.
Hmm.
There's talk of models reaching maybe 50 trillion parameters before too long.
Wow. Which means they can potentially handle incredibly complex information, like understanding really subtle stuff.
That's the idea, yeah. More capacity for nuance and complex relationships of the data.
But hang on, I've also heard the opposite about really small models becoming important.
You have. It sounds contradictory, but it's true. Alongside the giants, there's a big trend towards very small models, maybe just a few billion parameters.
And the point of those is,
Efficiency. They're designed to run on your own devices, your laptop, your phone, without needing huge amounts of power or a connection to the cloud. IBM, for instance, has a model called Granite, only 2 billion parameters, runs fine on a regular laptop.
so they're good for specific tasks, maybe where speed or privacy is key, like running right there on the device.
Exactly. Things that need low latency, low overhead. So you get this dual trend, giant brains in the cloud and nimble specialists on your local machine. It's fascinating what kinds of things will only be possible with those small local models.
Yeah, interesting contrast. What about how businesses are using AI? Any changes expected there?
Definitely. If you look at 2024, a lot of common uses were, improving customer experience, automating IT tasks, chatbots, cybersecurity, standard stuff now.
Right, the first wave of adoption, maybe?
Kinda. For 2025, expect to see more advanced, more integrated uses. Think customer service bots that don't just answer questions but actually solve complex problems on their own.
Okay.
Or AI systems that aren't just monitoring IT networks but proactively optimizing them based on live data. Or security tools that don't just flag threats but adapt and respond to new ones automatically in real time.
So, moving from assisting humans to more autonomous operation in specific areas.
That seems to be the direction. Another trend tied to the big models is near infinite memory.
Near infinite memory, how does that work?
It relates to the context window of large language models, basically.
Yeah.
How much information they can keep track of in a single conversation.
Yeah.
Those windows are getting dramatically bigger.
Meaning a chatbot could remember everything you've ever said to it.
Potentially, yeah. We're heading towards a point where AI could recall every single past interaction.
Whoa, that's a lot. On one hand, super useful maybe, like it always knows the context. On the other hand, kind of creepy.
It definitely raises some big questions, right? About privacy, about what that kind of interaction feels like. It's something to watch.
For sure. Any other major trends?
One last crucial one. Human-in-the-loop augmentation.
Okay. Keeping people involved.
But focusing on how to make that collaboration effective. It's not just about giving people AI tools. It's about helping them use those tools well, integrating them smoothly into how they already work without needing to become AI experts themselves.
Because just having the tool isn't enough.
Right. There was this interesting study where a chatbot actually did better than doctors at clinical reasoning on its own. But when doctors used the chatbot with it, that combined group actually scored lower than the chatbot alone.
Really? Why would that be?
It highlights that figuring out how to prompt these things effectively, how to integrate their outputs into your own thinking, is actually quite challenging. We need better interfaces, better systems for that human-AI partnership.
So it's about synergy, not just handing over tasks, making the whole greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. It's about true augmentation.
Okay, this gives us a great view of the broader landscape. Now let's maybe zoom in on one specific area you mentioned earlier, finance.
Yeah, finance is a really interesting case study. Huge potential impact there.
The financial health of a company is critical. How is AI playing the role of a company doctor here?
That's a good analogy. Finance departments are dealing with a lot right now. Inflation worries, global uncertainty, changing rules and regulations. AI optimization can be like a treatment plan to help navigate all that.
And companies that use AI well in finance are seeing results.
The data suggests so, yeah.
Oh.
Organizations that really scale AI in their finance operations tend to perform better, see higher ROI. Which makes sense, right? Finance is all about allocating resources effectively. Better tools should lead to better decisions.
So how does it break down? What's traditional AI doing versus this newer generative AI in finance?
Traditional AI, think automation. It's great for the routine, high-volume stuff, collecting data, summarizing standard documents, finding known patterns, using algorithms we understand pretty well. RPA, robotic process automation, fits here.
Automating the grunt work.
Essentially, yeah, freeing people up. Generative AI, on the other hand, helps with the more complex, maybe more creative tasks,
Like what?
like actually creating new content, drafting financial reports, generating forecasts based on prompts, explaining variances between actuals and budget, that kind of thing. It uses those deep learning models trained on tons of financial data.
Can you give a practical example, like day-to-day work changing?
Sure, think about building a big financial analysis in Excel. You know, pulling data from different systems, crunching numbers, making charts, writing summaries. Takes ages, right?
A lot of manual effort.
With generative AI, a finance pro might spend, say, just 10% of their time prompting the AI, guiding it, reviewing its output, instead of maybe 50% doing all that manual work.
Wow, that's a huge time saving.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
The AI can ingest the data, spot trends, flag anomalies, generate scenarios, draft the report sections much faster.
So it really changes the nature of the work. More analysis, less data wrangling.
That's the goal. It's enabling things like rapid anomaly detection, getting instant explanations for why numbers look weird, generating multiple what-if scenarios quickly, automating complex reporting. It's automating workflows that were previously very manual and complex.
Okay, but there must be tons of possible AI uses in finance. Where do companies typically start?
It can feel like choice overload, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A good approach is often to focus on the core finance workflows. Usually that means order to cash, procure to pay, record to report, and financial planning and analysis, FP&A.
FP&A, financial planning and analysis. Is that a particularly impactful area?
Generally considered the one with the biggest potential transformation from AI,
Why is that?
because it benefits from both types of AI.
Yeah.
You can use traditional AI to efficiently gather and organize all the data needed for planning and forecasting.
Okay, get the data house in order.
Right. Then you bring in generative AI to do the really smart stuff, suggest ways to cut costs, spot subtle patterns or anomalies that humans might miss, create dynamic forecasts that update automatically, run complex simulations,
So it makes the whole planning and forecasting process faster, smarter.
and more forward-looking. Better FP&A means better decisions across the board. Sales, marketing, supply chain, everything. You can explore possibilities, simulate different economic conditions, all without real-world risk.
You mentioned ROI earlier. What kind of numbers are we talking about for AI in finance?
The studies show a progression. Companies that have just implemented AI average around 18% ROI. Those who have fully operationalized it, meaning as part of their standard processes, see about 24%.
And the top performers?
The ones who have really optimized how they use AI in finance, they're reporting around 51% ROI.
Those are significant figures, hard to ignore.
Definitely get attention. But of course, there's skepticism too. CFOs have valid concerns.
Like what? Data security.
That's a big one. Data security, managing risks, governance, potential biases in the AI models, ensuring accuracy, avoiding decisions that could hurt shareholder value. These are all real issues.
Can they be managed?
They can be mitigated, yes. But it requires careful planning, robust protocols, ongoing monitoring. It's not plug and play.
What about the people side? Are finance professionals worried about their jobs?
That's always a concern with automation. But the narrative, at least from the proponents, is that AI is here to augment humans, not replace them, to help them work more effectively, handle the complexity.
So shifting people from routine tasks to higher value work.
Exactly. One figure suggested that generative AI adopters see about 40% of their workforce redeployed to different, often more strategic tasks. But it requires investment,
Investment.
training, Finance teams need new skills, understanding machine learning concepts, data science basics, maybe agile ways of working to collaborate effectively with these AI systems.
So it's about upskilling the workforce to work with AI.
Precisely. AI democratizes information in some ways, acts like digital labor to take off some of the burden, but you need people who know how to use it strategically.
And getting buy-in is important, presumably,
Yeah.
from the teams, leadership.
Absolutely critical. Teams, stakeholders, business leaders, everyone needs to be on board. Starting with a high-impact area like FP&A can sometimes be a good way to demonstrate value and build that buy-in.
So if a finance leader is considering this, what key questions should they ask?
Good question. Things like, how does this AI initiative align with our overall business strategy? What specific decisions will it impact? How will our decision-making processes need to change? And what does a hybrid human-digital workforce look like in our finance function?
Thinking through the practical implications.
Yeah. A sensible path is often to build that traditional AI foundation. First, automate the core workflows. Then layer generative AI on top to enhance those capabilities. For example, business models are getting more complex, right? Like cloud subscriptions and revenue recognition.
Tricky stuff.
Generative AI could potentially help by ingesting all the relevant contracts and accounting standards and summarizing the key points for revenue recognition much faster.
Okay, lots to think about there. This has been incredibly insightful, really covering the whole journey of AI.
Yeah, we went from the early days, the evolution, through ML and DL, right up to generative and agentic AI.
Plus, a look at the key trends shaping 2025, the big models, the small models, that inference time compute idea, and keeping humans in the loop.
And then diving into how it's all starting to reshape a critical function like finance. Hopefully gives a clearer picture of where things stand and where they're headed.
Definitely. So for everyone listening, you should now feel hopefully a bit more equipped to navigate the AI conversation, understand its past, present, and near future.
And maybe just one final thought to leave you with, sort of tying things together.
Go for it.
Given how fast agentic AI is developing and how much better AI is getting at complex analysis like in finance, what new kinds of jobs or maybe new ways of collaborating between people and AI do you think might emerge specifically in a financial world over the next few years?
That's a really interesting question to chew on. What does that future collaboration actually look like?
Something to ponder.
Indeed. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you'll keep exploring these ideas. Until next time.